experience and relate to it. And as I'll be talking about later, and one of the benefits of poetry therapy is it helps the person put some distance between themselves and their own experience to project it onto another figure, another character. So, and the same is certainly true of the never-ending story, which was also quite popular, a story of a young boy whose mother dies and his father is not able to deal with the issue. So is sort of disconnected and blind to the boy's own grieving process, to the extent that the boy escapes. You know, he finds this book, he plays hooky from school. He's also being bullied, and his father's, again, completely unaware of this. So he finds this book and creates a whole new world, a whole new reality. So what I find working with my clients often is that as children, they find ways of escaping their situation. And often retreating into fantasy is a big part of that, whether it's through reading, lying in bed and just fantasizing all the time, finding pornography and masturbation and becoming conditioned to using it as a form of escape. But certainly the mind is incredibly resourceful in finding ways to survive. Ah, look at all these hands. Yes, where's our microphone person? Yay, to the rescue.
This is not profound. I couldn't read the first name of the author of Harold and the Purple Crayon.
Oh, who is that? Neither can I. Where are my glasses? Crockett?
Is it?
Yes, Crockett Johnson.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Ooh, this works much better. Hey. Yes, and the other question?
Yes, so in using these books as an intervention with the clients, it sounds like even with the never-ending story that there is like this thread of disassociation that maybe even a child could connect with in terms of these ways that they're escaping. Oh. So I'm wondering, would the intention be more for the client to feel understood by reading this book, or how would we then transition from them reading it into then the session? I'm just curious and practicalities, I guess.
Yes, so this is one of the key points about poetry therapy also. We don't have to have the answer or a solution. The process is inviting the client to explore their own personal reactions to the material, what they got out of it, what that brings up for them. Does that touch on any memories for you? What do you get out of this book, this particular story?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Certainly. Good. Thank you. Yes, because, particularly for children who become the scapegoat in the family, there's a self-identity of troublemaker, and that the abuse they are suffering is their own fault. So Harold in particular is a wonderful example of how kids get themselves in trouble. But he was also able to creatively survive those difficulties and find solutions. So, Creel, the study I referenced earlier, concluded that using more than one modality in therapy was more efficacious than helped therapists avoid the trap Maslow cautioned against. If the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem starts to look like a nail. So how many of you would say you have an eclectic practice? Wow, lovely. Yes, I got trained in Rogerian therapy. Tell you how long ago that was. And it was fascinating to me, though, how, I think that the whole purpose behind that was the injunction, do no harm. How much harm can you do with Rogerian? But it wasn't until I actually got into the field, into the work, and began to see the concepts I read about in books that I began to understand what they meant by family dynamics and the children's roles and all of that. And of course, over the years, as I learned more about people and studied more, I got more training in this thing and that thing and Jungian, and began to incorporate that into my work. And then that's where we move into the art of psychotherapy, is to be able to integrate what we know and utilize it dynamically, organically, with the client in the now. That is the challenge. So that having a lot of different tools in your toolbox, very beneficial. Milton Erickson, who you might be familiar with, he was famous in medical hypnosis as well as family therapy. Lots of people trained in hypnosis under his techniques. And one thing he said was, through the use of metaphors and imagery, unconscious material is able to surface. He strongly influenced the fields of brief, strategic, systems, solution-focused, and neuro-linguistic programming. His concepts and ideas and approaches permeate our work in many different fields. He's quoted, "Most people walk through the world in a trance of disempowerment. Our work is to transform that into a trance of empowerment." So when we look at the advantages of the expressive arts, poetry, in working with clients, it creates a safer distance for client to discuss issues. It can be a less threatening way for the therapist to bring up issues, point out problems, or confront inconsistencies in a resistant client. It can reduce a sense of isolation. Many people, it's like comparing your life to that of Leave It to Beaver, and children believe that the dysfunction in their family is their own fault. Reading about somebody else who has experienced a similar kind of abuse helps them realize, it wasn't their fault. It wasn't because of them. They didn't deserve it. No child deserves it. And this is particularly true in poetry groups, or, any kind of therapy group where a person is able to hear more people's experience and get feedback. They can put their own into perspective. So, in terms of its benefits and, yes, questions. Okay.
I think that it's very helpful to go to open poetry readings also. And that's where you can hear the fact that we all have pathos. We're all in this sinking ship together, and kind of feeling isolated as I did. It was greatly assuaged by going to open poetry readings, reading my poetry and having positive feedback.
Very nice. He's suggesting that it'd be a great idea to go to open poetry sessions. A lot of libraries, bookstores offer routine or open, every week, every month, they have open mics where people come and read their poetry, present their works, and you can just go. And I have found